Hi there. Welcome back to Reddit Confessions, where the truth hurts, but it's finally heard. This happened 4 nights ago, and I still don't know if I'm the villain or the fool. All I know is, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten right, and the silence in the house is louder than ever. She was humming. That's how it started. She was in the hallway, putting on her earrings, humming like she had a secret. Not just any tune, it was that upbeat, taunting kind of hum people use when they want you to notice them. I was sitting on the couch, holding a mug of tea I didn't want, pretending to scroll my phone while watching her reflection in the glass. She didn't say where she was going. She didn't have to. Her outfit said everything. Sleek dress, high heels she hadn't worn in years, lipstick in a color she used to say was too bold for me. But suddenly tonight it wasn't. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to hear the lie. Instead, I cleared my throat. She turned to me, grinning like this was all some joke I was in on. "Oh, come on," she said. "Don't give me that look." "What look?" I asked quietly. "The sad puppy thing," she replied. "I'm just going out." "Out?" I echoed. She laughed. Full belly laugh, like I told a joke I didn't know was funny. "Relax, Ellis. I'm going on a date." I froze. She didn't. In fact, she twirled her keys around her finger, winked, and said the words that snapped something inside me like dry twigs in a storm. "Don't be jealous." And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't fumble for an answer. I didn't plead. I didn't ask if she was serious. I said one thing, "Then don't come back." She stopped. Her hand dropped. The smile on her face cracked so sharply it looked like it hurt. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just froze. And I think in that exact second, she realized something neither of us ever wanted to admit. She had finally gone too far, and I had finally stopped chasing her. She stood there for what felt like hours, her purse sliding off her shoulder, her keys clenched between stiff fingers, her mouth slightly open like she had a response ready but couldn't get it past her pride. And I just sat there, not moving, not breathing hard, just waiting, but not in the way I used to, not waiting to be chosen or forgiven or noticed. I was waiting to see what she would do now that the leash was off, now that I wasn't begging. "I'm sorry, what?" she finally said, her voice catching on the words like they were thorns in her throat. I didn't repeat myself. I didn't owe her that. If she wanted clarity, she could sit with the silence and try to hear everything I hadn't been saying for the last 6 months. She stepped forward like she was about to argue, her old favorite move, the performative sigh, the narrowed eyes, that tone that made me feel like I was 6 years old and had spilled something important on the carpet. But this time it didn't land, because I wasn't arguing. I wasn't even resisting. I was done. And you can't fight with someone who isn't holding the rope anymore. "You're being dramatic," she said at last, more out of habit than conviction. That's when I stood up. Slowly. I walked to the kitchen, not to intimidate, not to storm out, just to get a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking for once. That was the strange part. I'd spent so many nights anxious and aching, pacing while she worked late or met up with friends. But now that the lie had stepped into the daylight, now that she had named it date, I felt calm. She followed me to the kitchen. "Ellis, you're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be," she said. "It's not serious. It's just someone I met. We've only gone out a few times." I raised my eyebrows. A few times. So this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a habit now. Something casual to her. Crater to me. I sipped my water. "And I guess it wasn't serious," I said. "When you came home at 2 in the morning last Friday. Or when you deleted all your messages before going to bed every night. Or when I asked if we could spend time together and you said you were too tired." She opened her mouth to defend herself. Closed it. Then, strangely, she chuckled. That same weird, haughty laugh. "You've been spying on me?" That was her deflection. Spying. Not hurting. Not lying. Not betraying. "I live here, Lorna," I said softly. I didn't need to spy. I just needed to pay attention. And I did. Too late, maybe. But not anymore. She looked away then, as if the corners of the room had more dignity than I did. I watched her. Her shoulders rose like she wanted to throw a tantrum. Her lip trembled like she might cry. But neither happened. Instead, she took a deep breath, looked me in the eye and said, "So what? You're kicking me out now? After everything we've built?" And that's when it hit me. She thought this was a bluff. A scare tactic. She thought I'd break like always, apologize for overreacting, ask her to stay. But I didn't, because everything we built, that was already gone. She just hadn't noticed the walls collapsing around her, because she was too busy playing house in someone else's bed. So I turned and walked past her, up the stairs, and closed the bedroom door behind me. I didn't lock it. I just didn't care if she walked through it anymore. She didn't leave that night. I heard her pacing outside the bedroom for maybe 20 minutes, mumbling under her breath, opening the front door just enough to make a point and slamming it like punctuation. But she didn't walk out. Not really. The keys went quiet. Her footsteps faded. Then, nothing. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, still fully dressed, arms folded like I was trying to keep myself from disintegrating. It wasn't anger that filled the room. It was disappointment, thick and dry like dust. I don't know how long I sat like that, but eventually, the light under the door went dark, and I knew she had turned in for the night, just not in our bed. I barely slept, and in the morning everything was weirdly normal. The sun poured in through the window like it hadn't witnessed the night before. Birds chirped outside like betrayal didn't echo louder than their song. And there she was, standing in the kitchen in sweatpants, sipping coffee, flipping through her phone like I hadn't told her not to come back. I stood in the doorway watching her. She didn't flinch. "Morning," she said flatly, like we were co-workers after a bad meeting. She didn't offer coffee, didn't ask if I was okay. She just resumed her charade, pretending we could reset the whole thing with caffeine and denial. I didn't respond. I walked past her to the fridge, grabbed a yogurt, and sat at the table without a word. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was surgical, cold, clean, final. But she couldn't take it. After 3 minutes of pretending to scroll, she looked up and asked, "So, are we just not going to talk about last night?" "I don't know what there is to talk about," I replied, calm but hollow. "You made your choices. I made mine." She rolled her eyes. "Ellis, come on. I said I was going out. You acted like I was running off forever. You said it was a date. It was a joke." "No, it wasn't." She hesitated just for a second, just long enough for me to see that flicker of guilt beneath the sarcasm. Then it vanished. "You always overanalyze everything. You blow it all up in your head and turn it into this drama," she snapped, standing now. "I said I was going on a date, yeah. But it wasn't some grand betrayal. You think I'm sleeping with every guy who makes me laugh?" "I think," I said, slowly standing, "that you haven't made me laugh in a very long time." She blinked. It was the first real reaction I'd gotten out of her in weeks, and I wanted to stop there, to let the silence do the damage. But I couldn't. "I think," I continued, "you've been slipping away piece by piece, and I've been stupid enough to hold out my hands and catch whatever crumbs you drop on your way out." Her eyes glazed over, not with tears, with rage. "Don't you dare paint me as the villain here. You're the one who shut down. You're the one who stopped making me feel anything." And there it was, the confession she didn't mean to give, the truth she thought would wound me into submission. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I understood. She needed this to be my fault. She needed the narrative to shift, because guilt is too heavy to carry alone. But I wasn't going to carry it for her anymore. "I'm going to work," I said, grabbing my bag. "If you're here when I get back, we'll talk about splitting the bills." Her jaw dropped slightly. "You're really doing this?" I didn't answer. I just walked to the door, opened it, and for the first time in years, stepped outside not wondering where she was going. I didn't go to work that day. I got in the car. I drove halfway to the office, but somewhere near the gas station on Sycamore and 12th, I pulled into the lot, parked behind a faded dumpster, and just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, the air conditioning humming like a lullaby I didn't deserve. I wasn't ready to sit in a cubicle pretending everything was fine. I wasn't ready for shallow conversations about weather or spreadsheets. I wasn't ready for the world to keep spinning while mine had collapsed somewhere between her laugh and her lie. So I sat there for 3 hours. I listened to the ticking of the dashboard clock. I thought about the last 12 years of my life. The quiet dinners, the Netflix marathons, the awkward holiday parties where she always sparkled and I stood beside her like a dull paperweight. I remembered the Sunday mornings she used to lie with her head on my chest, tracing lazy circles with her finger, telling me she felt safe with me. And I wondered exactly when that stopped being true, and why I didn't see it coming. Around noon, I drove to a diner across town where no one knew my name. I sat in the back booth, ordered a grilled cheese and coffee, and stared at the wall while the waitress tried not to look concerned. I must have seemed haunted, or completely broken, or both. When I finally made it home, the house was eerily quiet. I thought maybe she'd left, maybe taken my words seriously. But no, her car was in the driveway. Her shoes were by the door. And there she was in the dining room, sitting cross-legged at the table with her laptop open and her jaw clenched so tightly I could see the tension from the hallway. I didn't speak. I dropped my bag in the foyer and went straight upstairs. I needed a shower. I needed something clean, something simple. When I came down an hour later, she was waiting. Not with a speech, not with an apology, but with an expression I hadn't seen before, one I couldn't name. Somewhere between defiance and panic. "Ellis," she said carefully. "I talked to Marv." My stomach turned. Not because I was surprised she contacted him, but because she thought that was relevant. That was where we were in this conversation. "Okay," I said blankly. "I told him it's over," she continued, watching me for a reaction. "I said I needed space to fix things here. With us." I stood there, arms folded, waiting. "I thought that's what you wanted," she added, like she was handing me a prize she didn't want to give away. I didn't say anything right away. I let the silence grow until it became unbearable. Then I asked the one question she hadn't prepared for. "Did you want to end it with him?" She blinked, stunned. "What? You said you told him it's over." "I'm asking, was that for me or for you?" She opened her mouth, paused, closed it again. "That's not fair," she muttered. "No," I said, stepping into the room. "What's not fair is how I let you drift so far away while I kept pretending we were still on the same shore. What's not fair is how I built a life around loyalty, and you built yours around options." Her mouth twisted like she was about to cry or scream. I don't know which she settled on, because what came next was not a breakdown. It was something worse. She stood up, slammed her laptop shut, and said, "You always do this. You sulk, you brood, and then you twist everything to make me the villain. Maybe if you actually fought for me instead of playing the victim all the time, I wouldn't have looked for something real somewhere else." The words hit me like ice water down the back of my neck. I wasn't even angry. I was numb. But I was also finally seeing it. Not just the cheating, not just the lies, but the contempt. The complete lack of remorse. And in that moment, I knew exactly what she feared most. Not losing me. Losing control over me. "I'm not your project anymore," I said, turning toward the stairs. "You don't get to rewrite the past to suit your version of the future." "Where are you going?" she called after me, panic finally cracking her voice. "To sleep," I said over my shoulder. "In peace. For once." And this time, I locked the door behind me. Not because I was scared, but because I had something left to protect. I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not aggressive, not hurried. Just 3 soft knocks on the bedroom door, like someone asking for permission to enter a place they no longer belonged. It was almost midnight. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the wind pressing lightly against the window panes, but nothing else. No crying, no shouting, just that knock and then silence. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I had nothing left to give. No energy, no explanation, no carefully worded comfort she could twist into guilt. I just lay there under the covers, staring at the ceiling as she stood outside that door like she was waiting for a cue that would never come. After a while, I heard her sigh. The kind of sigh people exhale when they're not sad, just inconvenienced. Then her footsteps receded, and I imagined her retreating to the couch, hugging herself and whispering things into her phone about how I was being unreasonable again. I didn't sleep. Not really. My eyes stayed closed, but my mind kept looping every moment of the last week. From her laughing in the hallway to that vacant expression in the kitchen when I asked if she wanted to end it with him. That was the part that haunted me. Not the affair. Not even the gaslighting. But the fact that she had no answer. That she didn't even know if she wanted me or not. The next morning, I walked into the living room and found her wrapped in a blanket, scrolling on her phone, eyes glassy. She looked up as I entered, almost like she'd been practicing what she'd say. But I walked past her into the kitchen. The dynamic had shifted, and she knew it. "Ellis," she called softly. I opened the fridge, took out the orange juice, poured a glass. Only then did I turn to look at her. "I made an appointment," she said. "For what?" "Couples therapy. Friday afternoon. I found someone local." I stared at her for a few seconds, not because I was surprised, but because I didn't know if this was a tactic or a turning point. "And," she shifted under the blanket, "I want us to go." I sipped the juice. "Therapy doesn't work when one person's trying to win," I said. "I'm not trying to win," she insisted. "I'm trying to fix it." "Fix what?" She blinked, caught off guard. "You said you wanted to fix it, but you still haven't said what it is. Is it the way you lied? The way you chose someone else? Or is it just the fact that I finally stopped following your script?" Her mouth opened, then closed. The same loop. She was always quick with words when she was right, but now she was scrambling, and I didn't feel the need to soften anything anymore. "Ellis," she said after a long pause, "I know I hurt you. That's not an apology." "I know. I'm getting there." I walked over and sat down across from her. She looked smaller than usual, curled up like a child after a nightmare. "I'm not sure we can come back from this," I said quietly. "You need to know that." "I'm willing to try," she whispered. That's when I asked her something she didn't expect. "Did he know about me, Marv?" She hesitated. That 1 second told me everything. "Not at first," she admitted. "But eventually, yes." "Did he care?" "No. And you stayed anyway." She didn't defend herself. She just looked down, and I could see it all written on her face. The shame, the regret, the flickering fear that she might have permanently miscalculated the boundaries of my forgiveness. "I think I lost myself for a while," she said, tears threatening. "I felt invisible. I wanted to feel something again. I didn't know how to tell you." "You could have told me anything," I replied. "Except that." We sat there, the silence between us no longer cold, but heavy, like a thick fog neither of us wanted to move through too quickly. If this was the start of something, it wasn't reconciliation. It was a reckoning, a slow dismantling of everything we had both pretended was still intact. And for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to rescue her. I was finally trying to rescue myself. 3 days passed without her mentioning therapy again. Not a word about Friday. Not a reminder. Not a nervous glance at the clock. Not even a printed confirmation email left conveniently on the counter like some silent olive branch. It was like she'd floated the idea into the room just to test the air. And when it didn't immediately earn applause, she quietly withdrew it, hoping I wouldn't notice. But I noticed everything now. I noticed how she made just 1 cup of coffee in the mornings, no longer assuming I wanted one. I noticed how she left the bedroom light off when she passed by, like she wasn't sure if she was still allowed to exist in my space. I noticed how her eyes would linger on the front door every night, like she was waiting for someone to knock, or waiting for the courage to leave. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the shadows from the street lamp making strange patterns that reminded me of the scars in drywall. The kind you don't notice until furniture's been moved. Around 2 a.m. I sat up, turned on the lamp, and reached for my old laptop from the closet shelf. It was dusty, outdated, half the keys stuck from spilled soda years ago, but it still booted up, and it still had access to our shared cloud folder. She forgot that I was the one who set it up. The folder was mostly mundane. Travel receipts, lease agreements, a few photo backups from 2017 that neither of us had looked at in years. But buried in one of the older subfolders was a document. A synced notes file, auto-saved from her phone, titled Drafts. I opened it. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a shopping list. Maybe scribbled affirmations. Maybe something innocent the first could close and pretend I hadn't seen. Instead, I found entries. Dozens of them. Paragraphs she must have typed when her thoughts were racing, when her guilt was trying to outrun her logic. Some were fragments. Others were full-blown letters she never intended to send. But one, dated just 2 weeks ago, was complete. Sometimes I wish Ellis would just leave me already. Not because I don't care, but because I'm tired of being the bad guy when he won't fight. He always just takes it, shrinks, retreats, and it makes me hate him for letting me win all the time. Maybe that's why I went out with Marv. He pushed back. Ellis never does. He just disappears into his quiet. And I can't live in that silence anymore. I read it twice, then a third time. I closed the laptop, placed it on the nightstand, and sat in the dark for what felt like hours. It wasn't even the betrayal that gutted me. It was the clarity. She didn't just cheat on me because she felt unloved. She cheated because I made it too easy not to love me. I was her mirror and she hated what she saw. In the morning, I didn't say anything. I didn't slam doors or print out the file or confront her at the table. I just made 2 cups of coffee, put hers exactly where I used to, right beside her usual chair, and waited. When she came downstairs, her eyes landed on the mug like it was a threat. "You made me coffee?" she asked carefully. "Old habits," I said, sipping mine. "Hard to break." She sat, slowly, both hands wrapped around the mug like she was afraid it might disappear. There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I didn't book the therapy," she admitted. "I said I did, but I didn't." I nodded. "I know. You do. I know a lot of things now." She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't need to. Her face paled just slightly, her fingers tightening around the cup. I could tell she was debating whether to apologize, to confess, or to spin the story into something forgivable. But for once, she did none of that. "I think I broke something in you," she said quietly. "No," I said. "You just showed me it was already cracked." And then we sat there, in the morning light, drinking lukewarm coffee while the weight of 12 years pressed against the silence. Neither of us had anywhere else to be. But both of us knew we wouldn't be sitting at that table much longer. Saturday morning crept in like fog, quiet and slow, settling into every corner of the house as if it knew something was about to change. I was in the garage, digging through old boxes looking for a power drill, when I saw it, the suitcase. Blue, medium-sized, scuffed on one corner like it had been dropped too many times at airport baggage claims. It wasn't mine. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was that it was packed. Not partially, not haphazardly. Fully zipped, rolled into the shadow beside the water heater, tucked away like a secret that hadn't decided whether it was leaving or waiting to be found. I stared at it for a full minute. I didn't touch it. I didn't unzip it. I just stood there trying to make sense of why my wife, the same woman who just 48 hours ago said she wanted to fix us, had a suitcase ready to go in a place she never went. Later that afternoon, I asked her. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked into the living room, stood behind the couch where she was watching a movie, and asked, "Were you planning on telling me you packed?" She didn't flinch. That almost hurt more than if she had. She paused the movie and turned around slowly. "You went through the garage?" "I was looking for the drill. Your suitcase was harder to miss than the shelves collapsing." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood up and took a deep breath, like she was about to jump into cold water. "I packed it 2 weeks ago," she said. "I didn't know if I'd need it, but I couldn't sleep knowing I wasn't prepared." "Prepared for what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She hesitated, then said it anyway. "For the day you stopped forgiving me." I let that sit between us for a moment. like something we both needed to feel fully before it could dissolve. "So what now?" I asked. "You leave? You stay and pretend? You wait for me to change my mind again?" She looked me in the eye, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't look smug or cornered or even afraid. She just looked tired. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't think I deserve to decide." That stunned me more than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. Because for the first time since this whole thing started unraveling, she was being honest. Not about me or her justifications or the past, but about herself. I sat down on the armrest, rubbed my face, and stared at the carpet like it had all the answers. "I found the note," I said finally. "What note?" "In your synced folder. The one where you said you wished I'd just leave so you didn't have to feel like the bad guy." Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't deny it, didn't reach for excuses. Her eyes just dropped, and her shoulders folded inward like she'd been punched. "I was angry when I wrote that," she muttered. "Yeah," I said. "So was I when I read it." We didn't talk much after that. The rest of the day passed in fragmented routines. Folding laundry that didn't matter, cleaning counters that weren't dirty, pretending the world outside still spun the same. I kept walking past the garage door, half expecting to hear wheels dragging across concrete. But she never touched the suitcase. She never moved it. She just left it there, like a reminder, like a test, like a truth she wanted to confront but couldn't bear to finish. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I stayed in the spare room with the ceiling fan that buzzed like an old engine and the mattress that sank in the middle. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't warm. But it was honest. And maybe, for now, that was enough. It was a Sunday morning, clear skies, no wind, the kind of weather that makes you feel like something's about to start, not end. I woke up in the spare room again. Same sinking mattress, same humming ceiling fan, but something felt different. Lighter, still, like the grief in the walls had finally decided to move out. I opened the bedroom door and expected silence. Instead, I heard movement in the kitchen. Not just the shuffle of feet or clink of dishes, but music. Soft jazz. Something she never used to play. Something unfamiliar. And beneath it, the faint smell of cinnamon. I walked down the stairs, still unsure whether I was ready for whatever this was. She stood at the stove in a faded old hoodie I hadn't seen her wear in years, flipping pancakes with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. "You hungry?" she asked without turning around. I paused. "You made breakfast?" "Technically, I'm making it now. But yeah." "Why?" She placed a plate on the counter. Pancakes, cut fruit, a side of scrambled eggs, the way I used to make them for her on Sundays before things got quiet. "I just wanted to do something right today," she said. "No agenda, no performance, just this." I sat down. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, we ate together without keeping score. No questions, no tests, no passive-aggressive glances. Just two people trying to feel human again in the ashes of what they almost let burn down. After breakfast, she sat beside me on the couch and spoke quietly. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I do hope you can see that I'm trying. Not for your sympathy, but for your respect. Because you were always better to me than I ever was to you, and I see that now. I really see it." I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to, because sometimes forgiveness doesn't begin with words. It begins with the absence of blame. Later that afternoon, I rolled the suitcase back into the garage. Not because I told her to stay, not because she begged, but because we both agreed we weren't ready to give up. Not yet. We decided to start over, not from scratch, but from truth. It's not perfect. We still have long talks, awkward silences, and mornings where trust feels like a foreign language. But there's effort, there's transparency, and for the first time in a long time, there's hope. And maybe that's all you need to begin again. Thanks for watching this story here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced something similar, a moment where honesty finally broke the silence, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. What would you have done in Ellis's shoes? Was there a moment in this story that hit close to home? Leave your thoughts below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful confessions like this one. Until next time, take care, and remember, the truth might hurt, but it just might heal too.